I'm not sure if anyone's noticed, but my yak is slightly different this time. So what's happened is Viking Kayaks have kindly given me a new 400 with a new plastic to test out. So there you go. I had the choice of a new reload or a new 400, and I chose the 400. Over the last year, I've been paddling the 400 a lot, and I've been really enjoying it. It suits my style of fishing. There's other reasons why I really like the 400, so we're going to cover those as we go along. So keep watching, guys, but first off, we're going to do a bit of quality control and check that the new kayak's been well made, and the first place to look is where I had an issue in my other one. It's actually got a pretty decent thickness there. Impressed with that, T. Done a good job, mate. I'm just going to add a backing plate in behind because I can. Check out the vid, Where the Bloody Hell Are You, for instructions on how to fit a backing plate on your rod holder. Well guys, the new plastics claim to be stronger and 2 kgs lighter. Let's put it to the test and we'll give it away. But to do it properly, I know some people will say my scales can't be right. So what I've done is I've put 10 litres of water in the pail, 10.1. So that pretty much allows for the bucket. So we're pretty much bang on the weight calibration with these scales. So you go, pretty much the same, just over 10 kgs. So these scales, even though they're old clock face scales, not electronic, they're still pretty bloody accurate. This is the old 400, new model old 400. So that's sitting 37 kilos. That's why over the last year, since I've got the new model 400, I've been using it a lot more than the reload. Mainly the weight difference. My reload's 48 kilos set up. That's a hell of a lot of weight to drag down the beach as I'm getting older. My back's getting a little bit not as good as it used to be, not as strong, so I do feel it. So for me, the 400's been a revelation going to a lighter weight kayak. Before we weigh this one, guys, you're often on social media, you'll get people asking about what they should get, a 400 or a reload, and it always comes up that the tackle pod system on the reload and the GT is so much better than the 400. It's so much quicker to set it up and get on the water. Well, what we're going to do, we're just going to time it and we'll just see how long it takes. So it'll be easy enough to do that off the GoPro footage afterwards, but I'll just show you. This is set up so that the battery's already in place in here. So all I have to do is plug in the transducer. So let's go. Pod goes in. You clip those little clips down, 4 clips. Transducer cable. Done. Set up. Loz, the 400 comes with a lid, not a tackle pod. Yeah, that's right, guys. The tackle pod is an added extra when you buy the 400. The 400 has a lightweight tackle pod. There we go. 3.3 kgs. Now let's compare that with the reload. 7.7. Tackle pod system for the 400, in my opinion, is a lot better than the lid. Just for the fact that you can load all your gear the night before and have it sitting in your car or your truck ready to go the next morning. That's enough ranting about the tackle pod, guys. Time to weigh the new 400 and see how much lighter this plastic weighs. Up on the sling, the new 400. 35 kilos. Viking have said it's 2 kgs lighter the whole weight, and that's 100% correct. You'll notice that the whole weight is heavier than what they say, but when they're weighing the whole weight, that's without any fittings added to it. Right, it's time to pimp the yak out. The reload comes with 3 saddles on each side, and the 400 only has 1. When I'm fishing, I like to have a lot of rod leashes and the paddle leash, and I even leash my water bottle. So we're going to take it out to 3 on each side. I've gone for stainless saddles over the plastic ones, just for the fact that they're easier to unclip. Just got to be a bit careful because this is where your cord's coming through, so you don't want to be drilling into that. This is where the 400 has a big advantage, being able to access inside the kayak from the hatch. I'm just going to fit a this dry bag inside the hatch. That's the advantage of the 400, it can give you a lot more internal storage. But to do that, I have to get this tub and basically cut it off here around about a centimetre off and tape the bag on. So I've cut the stem off here, off the bucket, and I've insulation taped the centre well bag onto it. Now we just got to pop it in place. So it's just created a whole heap of usable space in there for me to put my stuff in, especially the cameras and food. There is one disadvantage of having the open and internal hatch on the 400, and that's that you really need to take a spare hatch cover with you. I've had it twice where I've been driving to locations, or either got to location and I've lost the lid, it's blown off in the way. Either I haven't put it on tight enough or it's just come off, worked its way loose. So I'm just trying a new system of holding it in place. So this saddle here is here for the hurricane seat, for locking it down, but I've added a bungee from that and a couple of little stay puts like that. So effectively I've got a bungee locking that lid in place so the wind can't blow it off.
Next step is to chuck the hurricane seat on.
That's what I love about the hurricane seat. You have it folded down, drive with the cushion in place, ready to go. Like that, and you're set up. So easy.
We all love a good air shot, but this next hack solves a problem with the positioning of the rudder on the 400. So what I've done to solve this problem, I've made myself an aluminium extension plate. I'm sure Viking kayaks in the future will get this problem sorted, but in the meantime, it's an easy hack.
So we'll widen that up, a bit agricultural, but it will work well. So that's moved us back. Now I just got to lower that down, and you can see how the new holes that I've drilled in there will line up. It's just going to drop our whole rudder down to just below the bottom of the keel. As you can see, the hack's lowered the rudder down and got it just below the keel line. Perfect. Right guys, we're getting there. I'll show you what I've done. I've added a rod holder to the outside here. I asked Viking to leave off putting those rod holders like that. They normally just sit in here, but I've got the placement where I want with one of these to keep my rods up and reel out of the water a bit more. This side I've left off at the moment. I've added the running rig, trying a different type of Railblazer product for mounting the camera and for turning it around. We'll see how that goes. Right team, we're just going to have to install the fish finder and the transducer into the new 400. As you can see, I've already got a fish finder set up on a 400 pod, so I'm going to keep that and utilise that, save a few dollars. So I just purchased another transducer. So I'm just going to show you how this fish finder has been set up in place in this pod. But first of all, I'll just point out a couple of things on the pod. I've installed a Railblazer track port bolted onto the tackle pod so it's nice and firm. And I've got one rod holder off that. I could run another one, but I run the camera off this star port here. I like to have my knife handy, so that's screwed in place. And we'll lift the lid here. And you can see I've put a little FPV 7.5 amp battery, and it's installed on the lid. The reason behind that, this pod and the actual lid for the 400 can actually take on quite a bit of water when you're going through the surf, and lithium batteries and water is not the best mix, so I prefer to have my battery up out of off the bottom of the pod. So to do that, I've created a bracket to hold it in place with aluminium trim and rivets. So it's just an easy case of undoing that and lifting the battery out when I need to charge it up. So it's all nice and neat and out of any potential harm from water. Another thing to note with these pods, you'll see how it's recessed there, so that allows for putting it in place where the transducer goes. So it's going to be a nice neat fit, and you've got this recess here, so when the transducer cables are coming up and into your kayak, they're nicely protected too, they're not getting crushed.
If you're not into seeing how the transducer's been put in place, skip to the end and there'll be a final rundown on the setup.
So that's going to be mounted up under there, but I've got to make sure I've got the hole for the transducer cable in the right place to go up through the bung hole there. So what I'm going to have to do, so I'm just going to have to drill this out a little bit more where my thumb is. So there we go. Just open it a bit more so I can actually put the head of the transducer cable, the joining end, through there. So take any sharp bits off that could damage the cable. It's going to be locked in place like that, but the cable is going to have to come through here and up into the kayak. So that's why we're just having to improvise it a bit. And hopefully this hole here that I've just drilled is big enough to fit this through without damaging it. So just taking all the slack through. So that's going to sit like that and be up under the kayak. What we've got to work out is how we're going to connect this through to the kayak on the bottom of the well there. So what we're going to have to do is drill another hole and have the bolt coming right through. So we've just got to drill a hole through here to receive this bolt, so the bolt will be locking in place like that. Here we go. That's a 70mm stainless bolt, but I'm going to have to probably cut that down a little bit. I've got to work out the distance on it. It's probably really about a 60 that I need. We'll find out shortly. So now I can put the locking bolts in place here, and that part's ready to go. The next part of the process is I need to cut out 2 circles. This is a 50mm hole saw. On one of these discs we just have to do a cut here with the renovator and allow the cable to just sit in place there without being crushed. If it seems like a bit of shagging around, Viking Kayaks do sell a install kit for fitting out your transducers. So this is what we're trying to achieve. We've got the transducer and the cable coming up through the bung hole in the bottom of this well. So this little disc here goes on first, and that protects the cable. It stops the cable from being crushed. This one here goes on top, and then we can bolt it down. But as you can see, that my 70mm bolt is too long, so I'm going to actually have to cut a centimetre off that. Okay, before I hook the transducer in, I'm going to actually drill my hole through the hole here to put the transducer cable into the hole. So basically it's about 1 inch down off the top here, just slightly more, and I drill the hole and it won't be in the way of the cavity on the little tackle pod. Protection cap on first, then locking bung. Right, this cable's still nice and loose, it's perfect. Still has the ability to drain a bit of water down through there, which is good if we take a good wave. It goes underneath the lid if I'm using the lid. And we'll just check underneath. And that's our transducer there, sitting nicely underneath. Perfect.
Just using a Tenode cap to cover up the hole, applying a bit of silicone first, and you just get screwed in place.
I'll stick another little bit in under here, just make sure no water can go through there into the kayak. So where we're at now is that I've pulled the transducer cable through to the front, I'm going to just drill a hole right here to bring the cable up, and we'll put another cover over that. So here we go. Just going to check the length I need so I bring the pod in. So basically we're going to be running it up to there, plugging in, so that's roughly my length that I need right there. Same process, generous blob of silicone. Work out where the placement of the cap's going to go. So same process, we'll just pack this out here. Keep the integrity of the hole. Watertight. Before I forget, I'll just put the protection cap on the end of the transducer cable. A whole lot of excess cable that we've got to take care of. Get it out of the way. Get off there. So I just coil it up around your hand. Stop it from unraveling. Right guys, it's pretty much done and dusted. It's got one little thing left to do, but it involves a bit of sewing. But I'm just going to show you the yak how it's set out and point out a few things as we go. So you go, beautiful hurricane seat and the cushion. I've had to make a couple of little changes to how I normally have my 400 set up, the other one, and I'll just show you what those are. One of them is involving putting the spare paddle here, because what's happened is on my other two yaks I have the rod protection tubes on the front and they weren't available. So normally I run my spare paddle through here along the rod protection tube. So what I've done, I've actually improvised out of a couple of Railblazer rod holders, bolted together. I've improvised a nice little unit that can just be cable tied in there, so that the rods, when I'm coming back through the surf, just slide in and out nice and easy. So pretty happy with that, the way that's turned out. You can use Alkathene. I've used Alkathene before, but that seems to be quite good. And it was on here, this is the Railblazer hex mount, so that's a new system for me. It's more heavy duty, but it does involve a backing plate underneath it, so you wouldn't be able to put it on the rear for reload because you can't get that backing plate in there. But in the 400 I could just reach that to secure it, so that's for the camera. But I had to steal one of these off one of the rod holders, which effectively created that rod holder at the front, the spare one. Then I've secured it to an extension pole for my camera. So that works like that. Basically can get you a 90 degrees angle, and this camera's going to be able to drop in the water, so I'm looking forward to the footage that we'll get off that. It's locked in place for the surf transitions, and I can tighten the nuts up here and give it more security. We'll just show you here. So the cover, I had to make one change to the cover to secure the paddles. So the paddles are locked in place here on the webbing, but I've also added a couple clips on there for the spare paddles just to hold them in place, and I can still easily reach. When I'm fishing, the net's normally up the front, I can easily still reach the drogue. As you see with my kayaks, there is quite a bit of personal improvisation, and a lot of the stuff I've actually made myself because I couldn't find something that I needed. So the centre well bag, the covers, the backpack for the hurricane seat, and the fish finder covers I make myself. So if you want some of those, just hit me up. And we'll just have a look here. There you go. That's how we've lowered, you've seen in the vid how we've lowered the rudder down. It's nicely just below the keel line, so it gives it a lot better performance. But all up, she's a stunning yak. The cover's been secured in place. I've added extra stay puts. I found just through experimenting I only need that much there to open up to put fish in, and I can reach that one easy enough if I need to give me a bigger opening for a bigger fish, but I generally don't keep the bigger fish, so it's not an issue. So there you go. Front oh, that's what I've got to put there. I normally have a 6-inch extension there to lock this camera in place. And the one job I've got left to do on the kayak is I've got to make a surf strap that'll be screwed in here on both sides so I can lock the pod in and lock my rods in place like that when I'm coming back through the surf transitions. But all in all, I'm pretty happy. You see the plastic's nice and smooth, this new plastic. It does have a little bit more of a tinnier sound to it, just the different density. I'll go and compare that with my one from last year, with the older plastic. So you can definitely tell the difference. That's a solid knock. Yeah, definitely hear that solid knock. That's probably the one thing that's going to annoy me with the new plastic, with the filming. I like to have get the audio as good as I can, and on the windy days with a lot of splash from the water, I think the new plastic's going to be a little bit more annoying. It's going to sound a bit more like a tin boat, but we'll find out. So there you go, guys. That's the fit out of my 400. I hope you enjoyed that. What I didn't cover as much as what I was hoping to was the reasons why I've been fishing the 400 so much over the last year. We touched on the weight difference. That's a huge factor. The other one is the internal storage and utilising that. That gives me so much more storage space than the reload, so I really love that. Ultra handy, especially with the filming. The other factors that I find really good on the 400 is the stability. Both the reload and the 400 have awesome stability, but the stability in close around the rocks and the nimbleness of the 400 is a step up. So that's why I really love it. That's the style of fishing I love doing the most, and that's why I tend to use the 400 a lot more than the reload. There's another couple areas that the 400 really excels into, and I never thought I'd say this. I've always considered the reload to be the flagship of the fleet, and it's got a nice low profile to the water and a good center of gravity. So for me, on windy days, I've always thought I'd always be taking the reload, but as you've seen if you watched the Lure Masters vids I put up, the conditions were pretty windy there and pretty gnarly, and it really surprised me how good the 400 was. The 400 in those conditions, it has quite a low front to it on the bow, so it's not that impacted by the wind. The wind doesn't actually impact that kayak anywhere near as much as what you think, so it's an outstanding kayak in the windy conditions. And the other area that it's got one over the reload is if you're fitting out side scan transducers. They've both got big cavities in them now with the new models, so they can take up to a 30 centimetre transducer. But the one difference is if you're using a sounder like the Ray Marine Element that I've got in my reload, the actual transducer cable's probably 4 times as thick as what the Lowrance one is. So you don't have the ability to spiral it up and have it inside the cylinder in the tackle pod. So for me, on the one I've got set out, I've had to do a figure 8 with the transducer cables and improvise, and that still would be the case even with the new model reload. But on the 400 you'd be able to fit that inside the hull and have that nice and neatly fitted out without the hassle I had to go to with the reload. So I've told you the positives of the new 400. It wouldn't be a fair review without actually saying what the negatives are. The negative for the 400 is that low front that makes it good in the wind, also makes it a torpedo going through the waves. So when you're going out through the surf, expect to get wet. It's a wet boat and you're going to get wet. But in saying that, when you're coming back in the surf, it's a hell of a fast boat. It's a lot faster than the reload coming in, and it's great in the waves coming in. You really enjoy the 400, but it's just slow and wet going out through them because you're wearing the waves. The other negative, and it's not an issue for me, but if you're a bigger person, say 110 plus kgs, the 400 doesn't have the reserve carrying capacity of the reload. So it only has a rating of 175 kgs compared to 200.
so it's not really suitable for the bigger kayakers. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you guys in the next vid, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already done it. Cheers guys.